All right, everybody, it's Mr. Purick again, and I have a special little video for you today because today I'm introducing you to our next unit. We have finally finished our post-apocalyptic unit. You finished that by writing your essay on the road, and we're moving into a new one called Poetry of the Apocalypse. Now, some of you might groan when you hear the word poetry. You have a lot of preconceived notions of it. I'm hoping that you'll instead find some enjoyment in the unit we'll be doing. I'm a very big fan of poetry. I think just the use of the power of words and imagery can be shocking, can be life-changing, and so I'm hoping that we're going to be able to harness some of the power that I think resides in poetry in these times that we find ourselves in. And so that's one thing I'd like to start off by talking about is why poetry? Here we find ourselves, you're probably in some sort of quarantine, trying to decide, what to make of the world around you. You're probably a little bit anxious and fearful. Why would you spend any of your time thinking about poetry right now? Well, I'd like to read you a poem that I've started this unit off pretty much every semester of teaching the apocalypse class, and it has even a stronger theme to it now, considering what we're going through, than it ever has before. It's a poem by one of my favorite poets named Lawrence Ferlinghetti, and it's called Poetry is Insurgent Art. Some idea of poetry being a work of insurgency, of rebellion. And I think that this can mean a lot of things that I'll talk about, but I think that it has some importance to what we're going through now and the way we can think about the world. So I would ask that you open up the file of Poetry as Insurgent Art from Canvas to read along with me. You can pause the video now before I read it, so I'll give you a chance to do that. Okay. Let's read it. This is Poetry as Insurgent Art by Lawrence Ferlinghetti. I'm signaling you through the flames. The North Pole is not where it used to be. Manifest destiny is no longer manifest. Civilization self-destructs. Nemesis is knocking at the door. What are poets for in such an age? What is the use of poetry? The state of the world calls out for poetry to save it. If you would be a poet, create works capable of answering the challenge of apocalyptic times, even if this meaning sounds apocalyptic. You are Whitman. You are Poe. You are Mark Twain. You are Emily Dickinson and Edna St. Vincent Millay. You are Neruda and Mayakovsky and Pasolini. You are an American or a non-American. You can conquer the conquerors with words. Now, what does a poem like this have to do with what we're facing right now? Well, I think one way you can read this poem is the idea of conquering the conqueror, which usually might mean some sort of maybe political or philosophical rebellion. And I think that that's great. And I think that this poem has a huge power to it for that. But I also want to focus on the lines, what are poets for in such an age? What is the use of poetry? Well, historically, poetry has often been seen as the maybe highest expression of literary thought. It's the harnessing of words without the sometimes structure of a narrative or a story to help it along. It's pure language being created merely for beauty and expression. And so the expression of thought and beauty sometimes seems to have no practical use. It has no function other than to express the art or express the beauty it's trying to talk about. Now, why is that important now? Well, let me give you an example of something that I ran into a couple days ago at the height of the coronavirus panic. I was going on Instagram, and usually what I would see is pictures of empty supermarket aisles or a map of the country or the world all turning red with possibilities of pandemic. But instead, when I opened up Instagram, I saw my feed covered with these pictures of art. There's an artist that I follow who I really like, and he had just posted a string of pictures that he had drawn, these really cool pieces of art, and all of a sudden it transformed my mind and kind of encouraged me that there's more to life than panic, that there's more to life than just the purely practical sides of trying to make sure you get enough toilet paper or have something you can do once you've finished streaming all your favorite shows. We need to harness the power of art, of self-expression in times like this to prove that we have value, that we have merit, that there is something about us humans that's beautiful and worthy of expression that we're working and striving to save at times like these. There's a sort of screaming into the seeming void, screaming to tell the universe that we have something to say. And I think poetry, it oftentimes achieves this kind of goal. So what we're going to be doing over the next couple weeks is reading poetry like this Ferlinghetti poem and other poems that I think you'll enjoy. We'll write a little bit about poetry, but ultimately you will be writing your own apocalyptic poem. And so I'm going to encourage you to take the kind of feelings that you're feeling now, feelings of panic, maybe feelings of unease or anxiety, and I want you to turn them into art. I want you to try to write them out in lines. Don't try to sound specifically poetic. Just try to put what's in your heart onto the page in words. And eventually you're going to be turning in your own original poem. But I'd like to have it not just be an English exercise, but an exercise in purging and expressing the emotions you're feeling at this time, which are truly, as Ferlinghetti puts it, the challenge of apocalyptic times. All right, guys, stay safe. Keep up your spirits. Remember to carry the fire, and I will talk to you soon.